It's the Security Weekly News. It is episode 406, despite our many detractors. It is the week of 11 August 2024, and I'm Doug White. We've got DEFCON Hijinx, AMD, Ukraine, FreeBSD, OpenVPN, the Pwnie Awards. I can never say it right because of that show, the Pwnie Awards, Josh Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. ThreatLocker implements a least privileged approach to cybersecurity, blocking every executable unless specifically authorized by your team. This methodology mitigates ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits, and ensures 24/7, 365.25 protection for your organization. To learn more about how ThreatLocker can help prevent known and unknown threats in your digital environment, safeguard your data and operations from threat actors, and align your organization with respected compliance frameworks, visit securityweekly.com/threatlocker.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices and reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
All right, from exile on the island of Elba, it's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and welcome to the show. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and leave a comment on your favorite platform, or I cry myself to sleep at night. It's really pathetic, yeah. All right. I always went back and forth over the years on my favorite processors. And you've probably seen people have these arguments in bars, or maybe not bars, maybe, I don't know, something, but AMD versus Intel, because there's not a lot of other options, right? I mean, there are other processors, but mostly it's AMD versus Intel. And there's the people that say AMD is too hot, Intel is too expensive, and all those, of course, changed over time, but never really settled on one. I always tried to build the highest performance machines I could with the budget I had. And so, but here's a low-level warning for you. AMD, I found interesting, AMD says that there's a high-severity CPU issue that is now being called sync close, which affects multiple series of EPYC, or EPYC, I guess is how you say it, Ryzen and Threadripper processors. The issue could allow an attacker with ring 0 privileges to gain ring -2 privileges and install malware that you can't even detect. The call is coming from inside the house. Right. Now, if you're not really up on all this ring stuff, because sometimes people start talking about ring stuff and like, I know Paul talks about a lot on Paul's Security Weekly and so forth. And sometimes people say, what does all that mean? And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it relates to the system and the kernel and all these things. It's a way of describing these various levels between your hardware and your software and your users and so forth. And ring -2 is essentially the highest level of privilege you can possibly have. I mean, if you think root is cool, ring -2 is way beyond root. I mean, ring -2 is the CPU system management mode. I mean, this is the actual access to the hardware stuff. It's the God zone. I mean, you can swat admins like flies from high on the top of Mount Olympus if you're ring -2. Now, this level handles all the power, the hardware controls, the hardware security, and all the really, really low-level stuff. Now, the issue was found by IO Active, who named it sync close, and they said that it has been undetected for almost 20 years, which probably means it's kind of esoteric, and it is. But you do have to have ring 0 access, and I'll mention that again in a minute. And if you don't recall, ring 0 is the kernel level. So this would be access to the actual kernel. Users are ring 3 if you want to know where you stand. So, way up there. Yeah. But so it's not this like huge, remote code execution on the spot kind of thing. But if malware got installed at ring -2, even the hypervisor, which is ring -1, mind you, and the hypervisor is, the action between your physical hardware and your operating system / virtual operating system environment. Even the hypervisor at ring -1 couldn't see that malware. So it could just be sitting there. And AMD released a statement about the difficulty of exploiting this in the wild. Of course they did. And I don't disagree with their statement. But if someone who had access to the chips, the actual CPUs, like, say, in a factory in, I don't know, China, I mean, would it be possible to embed something in the chip? I mean, Lazarus in North Korea has worked a lot trying to gain kernel, like ring 0 access. And if you have ring 0, this exploit would allow you to get ring -2. Wow. So that's pretty scary. And I mean, if you've heard, Paul Security Weekly talk a lot about the rings and all these kind of things, because I know Paul's very interested in these very low ring number things. So it is something to keep an eye on. And they didn't seem to have any, there's probably not a way to patch it, to be honest, at this point. So just keep people away from your ring 0. Yeah. Good luck with that. Bad guys have been impersonating the security service of the Ukraine, called the SSU, and they're using email to target and compromise systems from the Ukrainian government. Now, CERT UA, which is the Ukrainian CERT, said that attackers have already infected over 100 computers with Anon VNC malware, which is a remote access tool, RAT. And the code signing on some of the samples appears to be from a Chinese company called Shenzhen Variable Engine E-Commerce Company Limited. I love having limited. The email has information that includes the address of the SSU directorate and is requesting that it's a standard phishing, and I just put it on here to bring this up again. But it's a standard, download this file, which is a zip file, which allegedly contains document requirements by the SSU security service for your company. Or your government agency. And of course, people click the link. These attacks started around the 12th of July, and the link downloads a Windows MSI file from gbshost.net that deploys the malware. So I know you're probably not a Ukrainian government entity, and you say, why bring this up? But just keep reminding people not to click the link. And seriously, block this stuff. Don't allow these files to download and execute on your networks. I mean, that is step one, is blocking MSIs, blocking executables. And I know that adds challenges to your life. But, and oh, by the way, stop asking me to click the link. Legitimately. I got this thing in both text and email telling me I owed money to this clinic. And yes, I owed them money because I got that rash after I sat so close to Larry on the show that night. But I mean, when your link connects to some third-party site and looks all sketchy, and there's no way to validate it, and the phone numbers aren't there and so forth, it's a real big hassle to sandbox this to just make sure you get paid. So I figure you'll eventually send some guy named Vinny over to my front door going, hey, you owe some money to the clinic, and then I can pay up. So if it's legit, especially after having to sit through training number 4,181 about not clicking links, come on. Look, you tell them and you tell them and you tell them don't click the link. Then you tell them click the link. Don't click the links. Don't forget to remind all your people. FreeBSD. Wow. I used to love FreeBSD. I set up tons of servers with it, including the famous Hot Kitty Cam in like 1997. Now, before everybody starts sending death threats and posts and whatnot, it was not anything inappropriate. It was Mr. Cat, who was my cat, under a heat lamp, literally. It did get a lot of attention. And it had a snap that updated every minute on the early days of the internet. But anyway, FreeBSD put out a patch for an OpenSSH flaw that's called regression. Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah, regression. Yeah, so regression was first listed back. I like saying it, regression. A new cologne for men. Smell like the 60s. Regression. But anyway, regression was first listed back in early July. Now, FreeBSD, which is the original Unix-based OS, so this is pre-Linux. I mean, this is coming out of Berkeley Unix and all this kind of stuff. It uses OpenSSH for SSH, secure shell. You know that, port 22, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, that's how you connect to it today, which is what we've been telling everybody to do for years. Although in 1997, I think it was like Telnet and R login kind of connections. But anyway, Qualys Threat Research Unit disclosed this OpenSSH flaw back in July, which could allow remote code execution with root privileges. So again, really, really bad. It's not ring -2, but I'll take what I can get. Now, the flaw at that point affected more than 14 million internet-connected systems running Linux or Unix. Sorry, Hot Kitty Cam is not there anymore, as far as I know. It may still be in the attic of that house where I lived, and yeah, it's just like sitting up there running. There was an email server I set up at a university in like 1996 that was still running like 15 years later. But the issue was addressed, but now it's back. So another version of the same flaw in Blacklist D, which is a daemon in OpenSSH, was found on the 7th of August. So it's time, if you have FreeBSD, to update to the stable versions 13 or 14. They have all the update guides, and you need to patch everything up. Makes me want to set one up though, right? I mean, I haven't built a FreeBSD server in a long time. I think a consulting job like in 2005 or something, but I still love it. It's still there. Well, everybody wants your data, and schools want a lot of it. Hat size, please, and what's your inseam, and also your inseam for bolero pants, and need to make them roomy. But they collect everything, and it's usually from like high school kids who just they want to get into the university, and they give them all this stuff, they fill it all out. Now, in this case, the East Valley Institute of Technology in Mesa, Arizona, reported a breach which impacted 208,717 students that contained 48 personally identifiable information categories. 48? I mean, what is 48 different PII categories about me? Favorite brand of lutefisk? Like, volume capacity of your pocket flask? I'm not sure what it is. When was the last time you ate a pickled egg on set? Like, seriously. Anyway, Keeper Security said that this was a much larger list than in most incidents, which sounds like that to me. The attack occurred on the 9th of January this year, and Sectigo said that the exposure of 48 distinct categories implied that this breach was extensive and probably indicated a lack of data segmentation and encryption. Yeah, you think? I mean, schools are always trying to find new analytics in their massive data sets, and there are all sorts of tools out there to help them do that. I mean, I've seen them. I've been in those meetings where they're presenting this, going, we can put all these things together and those things together, and we found out that if we give everybody a Clark bar when they're here at admissions, we tend to get a 0.0007 increase in admissions, that kind of weird stuff. But that stuff has a lot of, connections. And as Josh and I have talked about a lot, you may need to think about, how is all this data interconnected? How is it linked together? And what if we get breached? Did you check out that German language copy of Siddhartha on the 13th of October when you claimed you were at a frat party? Well, we have the checkout and the Carol log and the security cam footage. And oh, yes, you logged into the mainframe at 2200 with the username Smokin' J. So I don't think so. Look, I mean, whether you're a school or not, you really need to be thinking about how this data is all interlinked and what third parties have access to it and what third party data you're accessing. And all of that is occurring as we move toward a single plane of all data existence everywhere all the time. Pretty soon, I mean, I think everything from the last time you used your Wi-Fi to the AI-enabled toilet to what what you were looking at when you walk down the street is all going to be there in that metadata base on Mount Olympus and fully accessible to everyone because it's been hacked so many times. But hey, you use incognito mode when you search for saucy balloon animal porn, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, DEFCON wasn't canceled, and it went on without me, apparently. I mean, I was shocked, but it did. So if you don't know, the DEFCON badges are not just little pieces of paper with your name on them like you typically get, but they can be pretty elaborate, hackable, playable live systems. Now it's every other year though, I think. So they used to alternate years. So one year it was a live badge, and next year it was just something like elaborate but not active. Now you can build your own too, right? They have all these tables that you could go buy, all this badge building equipment and so forth. And when we had a studio, we had a whole lot of them hanging on the set. And the live ones are usually only every other year, but they can be a lot of fun. And there are teams that just literally grab the badges and head to their rooms and start working. Yeah, to try and figure out the badge and what are the Easter eggs and what are the I still remember like one of the goons came up to me and said, "Let me touch your badge." And I was like, "Hey, keep your hands to yourself there, Kimosabi." But they touched my badge and it put a bad guy on my badge. And I spent a whole bunch of time trying to get it removed. It really sucked. Yeah. But the goal this year was to produce a badge with a custom DEFCON themed game on a bare metal Game Boy emulator. So Dmitry Greinberg was the firmware dev for the DEFCON 32 badge this year. Well, when you start making a badge sophisticated enough that it could run Palm OS and has a game on it, it may have some issues. And I guess there was a whole hoo-ha on stage where this Dmitry Greinberg was physically removed from a talk about the badge project. And as with all things DEFCON, it's all now spiraled into some kind of mass drama. So DEFCON said the project went off the rails. So they put the specs in back in January, blah, blah, blah. Grinberg said they had agreed to do the software for fun. Now, the company that was behind all this was called Entropic. And the company said, wait, there's a problem. DEFCON issued them a stop work order. Entropic was over budget 60%. DEFCON sent their engineers to Vietnam to oversee the badge assembly of the 30,000 badges and removed Entropic's logo from the badge. Entropic said the specs were almost impossible. A hint. If you think a contract is almost impossible, it's probably a good idea not to take the contract in the first place. I mean, I've never seen that work out well. But Entropic said then that DEFCON did not pay them. DEFCON said they did pay what they contracted to pay, but they weren't paying all these overages. It sounds like the last time I had work done on my house. You know, it's like, okay, I'm paying for what you said I was paying for, not the extra $5,000 that you said I had to pay now because, oh, yeah, you wanted it. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Grinberg, who does not work for Entropic and was apparently doing this for fun, apparently then added some things to the firmware that caused the screen. There was an Easter egg that would display the Entropic's name and a Bitcoin wallet address that said donate. And later, Grinberg said this was an Easter egg and a joke. DEFCON said they didn't get the joke, they didn't know about the joke, and they didn't know about it until shortly before this badge panel was convening at the event, and then they decided Grinberg couldn't be on the panel. Now, Grinberg said he had not been informed about this and then refused to leave, and so he got tossed, and then apparently spent the rest of the DEFCON days trying to contact goons to see if he was going to be banned for life or something like that. So I'm sure further drama will ensue. Now, Microsoft also issued a warning about OpenVPN, and that warning said that skilled attackers could create exploit chains for remote code execution. This story's in the wrong place. I should have done this earlier. But the vulnerabilities were patched in OpenVPN 2.6.10, and I was just thinking of this because I have OpenVPN servers. But Microsoft researcher Vladimir Tokarev found 4 separate software defects affecting the client side of the OpenVPN product. Exploitation required user authentication and a knowledge of OpenVPN, a deep knowledge apparently, but the 4 vulnerabilities could be chained together to create a real nasty problem. So since a lot of people have OpenVPN running on Windows-based systems, patched that up today. It was just supposed to be an early notice, but, and I had these DEFCON, it was in my DEFCON file because it came from Black Hat, but you know how that works. Anyway, now look, if you're going to fail, own it, all right? I always tell people that. It's like accepting a Razzie. That's, if you don't know what a Razzie is, it's the one they give to the worst pictures of the year. Instead of an Oscar, you get a Razzie. So the Pwnie Award for the most epic fail this year went to La La Land. No, wait, Moonlight. Sorry. If you don't get Oscar jokes, I apologize. But anyway, that was an Oscar joke if you didn't get it. I know if you have to explain the joke, it wasn't funny in the first place. Anyway, the Pwnie Award for the most epic fail goes to... everybody put on your, it's an honor just to be nominated face right now. So that they don't catch you on camera when somebody else, when Meryl Streep wins and you're going, that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, the award goes to, you're already shouting it out at home. CrowdStrike. Who else could win this? They didn't even have any other nominations this year. I think the other nomination category just said LOL on it or something like that. But President Michael Centonas went up and accepted the award, just like Halle Berry did for Catwoman. No, I'm not even making that up. She actually did. That movie was so bad, and she got a Razzie for it, and she actually showed up and accepted it. I mean, literally. So look, I admire this in this president. I think acknowledging that you made a mistake and saying we're going to work to fix it in the future, if you actually do work to fix it, then I will admire you more. But that's what good companies do. So smart move, I think. Just show up, say, hey, mea culpa, really. And speaking of famous actors who almost never got credit for almost 100 appearances in TV crime shows with parts like guys with rebar in eye hole, guy with ice pick in brain, or guy with rebar in ear hole, it's Josh Marpet from I was going to say he was from some Banana Republic, but he's actually just like in his usual place. Hi, Josh.
I'm in one of my usual places. I'm in my house as opposed to my office. But yes, hi. And I actually do have an IMDb page. That's the scary thing. I've been on TV a few times. And I freak out friends when they go, I was just getting undressed in my bedroom with the TV on, and all of a sudden the History Channel was on, and you were on it, and it scared me. Sorry. Anyway, okay. So let's talk. I actually have an interesting on it. By the way, I got to tell you, I read through the DEFCON badge crap that's going on. And it is literally nothing more than he said, she said, oh my God, they're horrible. Oh my God, they're horrible. It's crazy. So we're going to see what happens there.
It's classic DEFCON.
Well, I mean, it's classic DEFCON, Hadnagi DEFCON, Entropic Engineering DEFCON. Like, oh my God, stuff is just happening. But yeah, when you run a conference.
Although now it'll be DEFCON with lawyers.
When you run the biggest hacker conference in the world, lawyers will get involved very shortly thereafter.
In the old days, they would have just had a slap fight out by the pool and then, drunk it out or something. But today, it's lawyers.
The slap fight would have been something vaguely, never mind. Anyway, so let's get on. So I found an interesting article, and I really want to talk about it. Not so much what the article is, but what the concept here is. DARPA is trying to kill C code, okay? So there's a lot of companies with a lot of C code out there in various places, drivers and boot and all sorts of places. That how long ago was C code? 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. C code's been around for a long time. Okay, there's a lot of embedded pieces that run on C code. I mean, hell, there's a lot of embedded devices that still develop in C code. But DARPA, in its quest for memory safe languages, is pushing people to Rust. They actually have a program which is transform all C code to Rust, something like that. And it's acronymed as Tractor. So I'm thinking you're calling something about Rust a Tractor. Okay, whatever. But the point is they want to transform all C code into Rust. Now, okay, I like the idea of using a memory safe language. Yes, I know everybody makes fun of it, but it's an idea. It's a valid thought, a valid way to move past some classes of vulnerabilities. I can understand it. I may not agree with it, but I can understand the concept. All right. And actually, to be honest, I agree with it in a lot of places. There are certain places I don't. For example, embedded devices. You take that C code, which is written to be as tight and small as possible, and you turn it into Rust, and you expand it into a couple of megabytes, even just a few kilobytes past what that little tiny embedded device can handle. Poof, you've blown it out of the water. It's just not possible. Right. So there are places this is problematic. But the interesting thing to me is that they're talking about using LLMs to transform. They want an automated sort of pipeline, if you will, to take C code and turn it into Rust, using LLMs, using automated systems, using translation and porting systems and LLMs to do some of this. And I can only foresee incredible amounts of problems with this. Now, is using an LLM possible to transform code into Rust? Absolutely. It can recognize a subroutine, write the same thing in Rust, or pull the same thing in Rust out of its memory banks, and boom, you're good. However, is it going to be efficient? Is it going to be proper? Is it going to work the way it's intended? Maybe, if you're lucky, you're still going to need programmers that are familiar with C and familiar with Rust, and you tell me how many of those there are, okay, to actually look at the code and go, oh, they meant to do this, and then have it happen in Rust. And that's going to be a problem. We simply don't have enough developers who are conversant in both C and Rust. Now, the next problem, of course, is that how well do you trust these LLMs? Because without the developers, without the programmers, without the coders to actually error check this stuff and then fix it up as they go along, you're trusting an LLM to take your mission critical code and turn it into a memory safe language. Yeah, it may do a great job. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of testing that goes along with that to make sure that it's hit all of the edge cases, or corner cases, some people call them, that it's hit all of the different problems that could occur from transforming this into Rust. To be honest, I think that the cost savings of transforming C code into Rust, and the cost savings being that it's more secure, it's less classes of vulnerabilities, you have a lower attack surface, you're immune to XYZ buffer overflows, things like that. I think it's going to be overrun by the fact that you have to have so much error checking on the original code, the cost of whatever automated system this is, the cost of testing and spinning up competing environments, not competing, but parallel environments, so that I can run the same data through and make sure I get the same answers out the other side. The amazing amount of effort, which is money, time is money, people, okay? The amazing amount of effort of EC2 instances or Azure blobs or whatever, of everything that goes into that, I think is going to outweigh the cost savings and is going to outweigh the security savings. I'm really not certain this is ideal. Now, is it something that shouldn't be done? No, I think this is a great idea in that it should be done as a test. Will transforming language A to language B using an automated system, what cost savings will we find and what cost savings will we not find? Doing it as a test, as a pilot, is an interesting thing to try. God, that's awesome. Let's do it. You know, DARPA is literally the perfect place to do that. But doing it as a cost savings measure, I don't know, man. I'm a little scared of what we're going to find. Not scared necessarily, but I don't think it's going to work the way they think. So we'll see. On the other hand, if you're in a consulting firm, yeah, baby, this is ours. All right. So that may be why some of the people saying, oh, we should do this in the article are from consulting firms. I don't know. Maybe that's why. Anyway, Doug, back to you, sir.
Thank you. It's like Y2K all over again when they were converting all the COBOL code and everybody was like, let's switch COBOL to C. And we kept getting calls because they were like, do you know COBOL? I was like,
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express.
Well, you know, they were like, we need to convert like 3.7 million lines of COBOL code to C in like the next 6 weeks. You know, and you're just like, oh, sure. Let me just jump right on that. That should be just a total bunny. And you don't have any data with that, do you? That C would misinterpret as octal numbers. Yeah, no chance that's going to happen. COBOL used leading zeros, if you don't know, and C reads leading zeros as octal numbers. And yeah, it fixed a few of those. But yeah, I mean, part of me is like, just write better C code. Come on. I mean, I don't want to be a Luddite, but like, you know, is it really like we have to replace all our code with a whole new language because we can't write good code in the first place? I'm like, if you write the code correctly, you won't have those problems. So seriously, it's like, okay. And so how is Rust going to fix this? Because it now doesn't allow you to do the bad habits that you've always done. You'll find some new bad habits, I promise. Sorry. Yeah. Don't get me started. Thank you, Josh. And finally, speaking of bad habits, Elon. Well, Elon suddenly said he was going to interview former U.S. President Donald Trump on Twitter, which is now called X for some strange reason, because, well, who cares anyway? But anyway, the interview was supposed to give former President Trump a friendly venue to express himself freely because, you know, all the rest of that. But it didn't start on time. So Elon tweeted it, you know, why, of course, people were, you know, the news media and everybody was saying, why didn't this start? I wasn't going to watch it anyway, but Elon tweeted about the outage at 8:18 p.m. and said that there appeared to be a massive distributed denial of service attack on X and that they were working to shut it down. Sounds plausible. But now Verge, online magazine, said that a source, an anonymous source at X, said it was not a distributed denial of service and that there is a 99% chance that Elon is lying. I'm like, well, Elon had problems with this previously, right? He tried to do a political interview with good old Governor Ron DeSantis from Florida, and he was trying to start a presidential bid back in 2023, and that all crashed and burned and so forth. But Elon had said earlier that they had tested the system with 8 million concurrent listeners, so no one will likely ever really know what's going on. Now, you and I both know that a distributed denial of service could easily have a lot more than 8 million, you know, concurrent pings if it's a botnet or something like that. Or Elon could be lying. I mean, either one of those things could be true. I mean, I'm trying to get a class action going. Like, did Elon Musk promise to send you a Tesla X in a bathroom stall in Jackson Square on New Year's Eve? If so, you may be entitled to compensation. Please, anyway. Well, that is the news. Thanks, Josh, and I will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.